10 worst business decisions. 10. Eat some AIDS. You probably don't want a taste of AIDS, but believe it or not, this was the name of a popular candy in the USA. The key word there is was though, because as you'd imagine, having a candy named AIDS wasn't great when the deadly disease began sweeping the nation. AIDS was basically a candy aimed at dieters as it helped to suppress appetite. It enjoyed a fair amount of success in the 70s and early 80s, but then the AIDS epidemic hit the States in the mid-1980s. Unsurprisingly, dieters didn't want to eat a snack that shared a name with the syndrome. The logical thing to do would be to change the name of your candy, but AIDS refused to undergo rebranding, believing that customers would differentiate between the candy and the illness. They didn't. Turns out that consumers couldn't or wouldn't tell the difference, and by 1988 sales of AIDS diet candy had halved. As a desperate attempt at change, AIDS was creatively renamed Diet AIDS, but when this understandably didn't boost sales, it was immediately withdrawn from the market. 9. Say cheese. Way back in 1973, Kodak hired Steven Sasson to work on a secret project that would end up changing photo technology forever. That project resulted in the invention of the digital camera. But rather than see this as an amazing opportunity, Kodak panicked and made a terrible decision. They refused to market the digital camera, fearing that it would destroy the lucrative film photography business. Well, at least they were right about that. Bosses at Kodak at the time just couldn't believe that anyone would ever want to look at their photos on a screen, let alone take a selfie. Plus, at the time Kodak dominated all stages of the photography industry, and feared that their own digital invention would cannibalize their sales. By the 90s, other photography companies had begun creating their own digital cameras, and Kodak made billions of dollars as they owned the patent. But when the patent ran out in 2007, so did the cash. Kodak's fears ultimately came to life, digital killed film, and the company filed for bankruptcy just 5 years later. 8. Blockbuster and chill. The beauty of hindsight must look pretty ugly to video rental store Blockbuster, who passed on the opportunity to buy what is now the internet's favourite movie service, Netflix. In the year 2000, when Netflix was still a niche DVD postal rental company, they offered Blockbuster the chance to buy them for $50 million and said they would run Blockbuster's online services. Netflix CEO Reed Hastings reported that his offer was laughed out of the office by Blockbuster. With thousands of stores across the globe, Blockbuster couldn't see the benefits of expanding their business model, and their revenue at the time largely relied on fining customers with late fees. However, as the rental market continued to change, Blockbuster ended up chasing Netflix, copying their DVD postal service and online presence. But they were too late to the party. Blockbuster filed for bankruptcy in 2010, by which time Netflix's worth had rocketed to $13 billion. 7. Schlitz Snob. Once the best-selling beer in the United States, the Schlitz brand drank itself under the table when it messed with the formula, leaving a bad taste in its customers' mouth. While Schlitz enjoyed a market lead in the late 1940s, by the mid-50s that title belonged to Budweiser. This led the Schlitz owners to go to creative lengths to increase their profit margins. Hoping that their customers wouldn't notice the change in taste, the Schlitz brand made a series of alterations to their brewing process and recipe, all to keep costs low. This included using cheap ingredients and artificial additives, which slowly resulted in an unrecognizable brew. By the 70s, Schlitz's brewing process had been altered so much that the beer was left with a mucus-like consistency at the bottom of its bottles. Schlitz's CEO argued that the snot-like substance wasn't harmful, but he was still forced to recall 10 million bottles of the beer. Sales ultimately plummeted, and the brand lost more than 90% of its value and was relegated to the bargain beer shelf on the shop floor. 6. Morse to mobile. It's hard to imagine now, but there was a point in history when the telegraph was the most advanced communication technology known to man. However, by 1876, Alexander Graham Bell had invented the telephone and was ready to bring his invention to market. Bell offered to sell his revolutionary phone patent for just $100,000 to William Orton, who was president of the Western Union, which was the world's most important communications company at the time. But Orton naively refused to buy it and instead secretly set up a separate phone company, attempting to bring a rival phone to market. Bell wasn't having any of it though, and successfully sued Western Union for infringing on his patent. In 1879, Orton was legally forced to pull out of the telephone market altogether, leaving Bell to usurp him and take the communications throne. 5. Stick to the oats. The wholesome brand Quaker Oats Company messed up big time in 1994 when they paid $1 billion more than the estimated value for drink company Snapple. Quaker chairman William D. Smithburg bought the niche fruit drink brand, thinking he could turn it into a mainstream success in the same way he had done with the sports drink Gatorade. But, unlike Gatorade, Snapple wouldn't shift off the shelves. Sales slumped as the market stalled and drinks companies such as Coca-Cola brought out their own rival products. Quaker poured millions of dollars into quirky advertising in a desperate attempt to boost sales, but they eventually resorted to handing out the drink for free at sports games and street corners. Quaker suffered huge losses of an estimated $1.6 million for each day it owned Snapple. Eventually, the company was forced to sell it just 28 months later, at a staggering loss of $1.4 billion. 4. The Space Western. A long time ago, in a studio far, far away, 20th Century Fox made one of the worst business decisions in Hollywood history. In 1973, George Lucas was in talks with Fox about a film concept he wanted to direct, a space western, soon to be known as Star Wars. Although Fox weren't convinced that the movie had any potential for success, George Lucas was offered $500,000 for his role as director. But instead of accepting the money, Lucas offered to cut his wage to just $150,000 in exchange for two simple requests. One, that he retained all merchandising rights for Star Wars, and secondly, that he would retain all the rights to any sequels. Fox foolishly obliged, and in 1977 Star Wars was released, becoming the second highest grossing film in movie history. Today, Star Wars' combined revenue from movies and merchandising is an estimated $42 billion, meaning that Fox's deal with Lucas signed them out of a rather significant sum of money. 3. Supermerger. In the year 2000, AOL and Time Warner embarked on the largest and most disastrous merger in American business history. AOL was the dominant player of the dot-com boom, while Time Warner was an established, traditional entertainment company looking for an online platform. According to both companies, the new firm, AOL Time Warner, was estimated to have a value of $350 billion. But problems occurred early on for the new super company. The dot-com bubble burst and the economy tumbled into recession, greatly reducing advertising revenue. Furthermore, AOL faced stiff competition to their internet subscription service, meaning that just 2 years into the deal, AOL's stock tumbled from $226 billion to just $20 billion. Unable to make any money from the deal, Time Warner dropped AOL from its name by 2003, and both companies pretended that the merger had never happened. 2. Yahoo? It's hard to imagine the internet without Google, but back in the late 90s, two internet giants turned down the chance to buy the innovative startup company. In 1999, the now unheard of search engine Excite.com had the opportunity to buy Google for just $250,000. However, they were unable to detect Google's potential and naively thought that Google's technology was too similar to their own. Nowadays, Excite is better known for this terrible business decision, rather than their own website. But they weren't the only ones to pass on the billion-dollar opportunity. Technology company Yahoo also missed out, turning down offers to buy Google for both $1 million in 1998 and $5 billion in 2002. Having gone it alone, Google is now worth an enormous $500 billion. 1. Murdoch's MySpace. Back in 2005, when MySpace had more users than Facebook, Rupert Murdoch's News Corp decided to buy the popular social media site for a whopping $580 million. At this point in time, MySpace enjoyed 300 million registered users and was valued at an estimated $12 billion. So what went wrong? Well, according to Murdoch, the merger with News Corp screwed up MySpace in every way possible. With Facebook hot on their heels, rather than the social media site continuing to run as it had done, MySpace became littered with garish adverts in an attempt to make the site immediately profitable. Furthermore, the corporate policies of News Corp prevented MySpace from adapting quickly to its competition. Although Murdoch has claimed to have learned valuable, expensive lessons from his ownership of MySpace, it's too little too late. After just 6 years of ownership, News Corp was left with no choice but to sell the site for just 6% of what they had paid for it.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, then head over to our brand new channel, Dave and John, the home of Fact Wars, where this week me and Dave have been talking about whether swearing is good for you, how BO can get you laid, and the unbelievable story of the world's luckiest, unluckiest man. So head over there now and check that out, and we'll see you again next time. Thanks for watching, guys. Cheers.